Hi everybody, my name is Ian Vair and you're watching The Green Mountain Chef. Thank you for tuning in. We're here at the studios of PEG TV right in Rutland, Vermont. We have a wonderful show for you today. Today we're working with products from the local Vermont Farmers Market, wild foraged fiddleheads. We also have wild foraged true morel mushrooms, lovely ingredients. These are ingredients that we can always find nearly in our backyard right here in Rutland, Vermont. Here in Vermont is a wonderful place. So, these ingredients are fun to work with because along with the recipe that I'm going to be demonstrating today, we can use them with many recipes at home. The most important thing about these ingredients, the wild fiddlehead fern and the wild morel mushroom, is that we're safe with them. That we always source them from an expert. That we always know exactly what we're working with. Because believe it or not, even though these are edible ingredients, they can have a slight amount of toxicity. Now, the most important thing with wild mushrooms not only is that they're identified correctly, any wild plant or fungus, we need to make sure that they're cooked appropriately because they all, like I said, have a small amount of toxicity. Don't let that scare you. It's actually quite wonderful to go into the forest, into our backyards, into the mountains, and find all this lovely food. Here in Vermont, we have great food to forage. We have medicinal products. Believe it or not, you can go down to your local Vermont Farmers Market and find many of them there. There are vendors that are just waiting to introduce you to these amazing ingredients, this food that is wild foraged. So, today we will be making a frittata. And those of you who do not know what a frittata is, it's almost like an open-faced omelet. Now, rather than sautéing the ingredients, laying the eggs down, then folding it over into the oven, we are going to be leaving it open-faced and then topping it with cheese. Now, how do we begin? Well, first I'm going to be cooking some potatoes because they, believe it or not, take the longest to cook. And I'm using a sauté method. Then we will be baking these. So the potatoes, the first thing we need to do, now you can leave the skin on the potato. Today I'm going to be taking the skin off. It's going to cook a little bit faster for the show. So I'm going to peel these potatoes. Now these were donated from a nice vendor at the Vermont Farmers Market. And what's great about going down there and supporting your local vendors is we are supporting our local community. We're supporting our friends, we're supporting family members, we are supporting so many things that are connected to everything that we do. So please come down to the Vermont Farmers Market to enjoy potatoes, onions, garlic, wild mushrooms, many other products. So I'm going to cut these to about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch. About a 1/4 of an inch today because they take a little while to cook. And if they're smaller, they will cook faster. Now when you're cutting, it's important to curl your fingers. Keep your thumb back and use your fingers as a guide. That way it's nearly impossible to cut yourself. You'll notice that I tend to use my knife fairly quickly, but I am well-trained, culinary French-trained chef. So with much practice, I make it look easy. No worries though. So with sauté, the key is a hot pan and not too much oil. We have a 10-inch sauté pan here. You can use a larger pan. This frittata would easily feed 2, if not 4 people, depending on the portion size that you were giving and if there were any other side dishes. Okay, nice hot pan. Potatoes are going in. You want to hear a nice sizzle when those go in. Okay, hot pan. Now if you're finding that your potatoes are sticking to the pan, you want to adjust your heat just a little bit, turn it down. We don't want to cook it too much on the outside and then not have it cooked enough in the middle. So, while our potatoes are cooking, the next ingredient that I'm going to be working with is the fiddleheads. Now, one thing with fiddleheads that as a young forager I didn't know about, but they need to be cooked. They need to be either steamed or boiled before we saute them. Okay? It's very interesting. They do have a small level of toxicity. Fiddleheads are also interesting because they're similar to mushrooms in that they do not drop seeds. They have spores. Quite amazing, actually. I believe one of the few plants, but I also believe that all ferns drop spores. It's important if you are foraging the fiddlehead that we don't take more than 5. There are 7 shoots that come out, but we need to make sure that we leave at least 2 so that Mother Nature can handle its business and let its spores release and the fiddleheads continue to grow. It's a very sustainable method of working with them. So our water, I have a very small amount of water, and that's going to allow them to steam about 5 minutes. No worries there. Nice. It's a beautiful day outside. It's a nice day to cook a lovely meal, enjoy a brunch with family, friends, maybe at a nice local gourmet restaurant. Okay, next, I'm going to work with an onion. Now, I have a whole onion, and thank you again to one of the vendors at the Vermont Farmers Market. Every Saturday from 9 to 2, and we will be moving outdoors May 13th, okay? And May 13th all the way through October in Depot Park in Rutland. It's right downtown, so please join us. So many vendors to support. Thanks again for this onion. Now with the onions, the root side I'm going to leave intact, and the top side I'm going to go ahead and cut off. From there, I'm going to cut it in half. Okay? Now I don't need this whole onion. I am going to take the skin off. That's enough. Now from here, I'm going to cut through most of the way through. And then down. Careful. Now if your skin is a little, as you see the knife wants to move on me, I'm going to peel one more layer of that off. Got to be safe with these. There we go. And then back down. Plenty of onions. Put them aside. Next I have nice garlic that I procured at the farmer's market last fall, and I've been using these all winter long. They're great. This is awesome garlic. It's lasted me 5 months now. Thanks again to one of the vendors at the market. These are the kind of ingredients and products that you can find at the Vermont Farmers Market, and any farmer's market, to be honest. Some are larger than others, but I believe that it's incredibly important to at least scope out your farmer's market. See what we have to offer. Many products, locally grown, locally foraged, locally made. Okay, so the garlic I'm going to slice. After I've peeled it, I'm going to slice thin slices there. Come back across. Don't forget about your potatoes, Chef Ian. Okay, give them a nice little turn. They're looking beautiful. Okay, bring this aside. Now we have the morel mushrooms. The morel mushrooms are actually my favorite. They're wonderful. There are many types of morels. There actually are false morels. So this is another mushroom that's a bit of an expert mushroom. Now the false morels, there's one deadly false morel. That's a little scary. They do look slightly similar, but the main way to differentiate these two species is to cut it in half. The true morel is hollow all the way through. The false morel has chambers inside of it, so it's impossible to mix these up. As long as you know those specs, you can't miss out. Now these are also very specific as to where we will be finding them. The morels, they love ash trees, dying ash. They love elm trees, dying elm. I like to look in dying apple orchards. And the crabapple tree, the wild apple tree, is where I usually find the most amount of morels. Okay, watch your heat, Ian. Coming along. All right. So the morel mushrooms, I'm going to cut these in half and leave them as it is. Also, it's important with wild mushrooms, give them a little brush. Some chefs like to wash them. And that's okay to do. It causes a, it can really sizzle in the pan and cause a bit of a mess. I like to brush them off, cut them in half. Believe it or not, we're not the only ones who forage for these. Bugs love them, slugs love them, deer love them, okay? They're only out for a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks every spring. So, let's see. I gave these a once over earlier, so I'm not too worried about them, to be honest. Cut them all in half. They're a beautiful mushroom. Almost look like a pine cone. I have only a few ounces here. These are very expensive. By the pound, at least $50. They're highly sought after around the world. Okay. Now, in with the potatoes. I'm going to go ahead and just about to add the fiddleheads. Now, the potatoes are nearly finished. The fiddleheads are finished. They've been simmering for, they've been steaming for about 5 minutes. Okay, get them strained off. Let's check these potatoes out. Delicious. These cook fast. 10 or 15 minutes. Looks like we did it in about 10 minutes. Take your time, folks at home. When you're making these, don't rush them. If they take 20 to 30 minutes, no big deal. Sometimes low and slow is better, but at least start in a hot pan. That's going to ensure that they get a nice crisp texture on the outside. Okay? Now what I like to do when I'm making this recipe is each of these cooks at slightly different rates. Potatoes obviously take the longest. Once the potatoes are finished, I like to separate them. And what I'm going to do is I don't want to overcrowd my pan. I don't want to leave any of the ingredients uncooked. So these are going to go in a bowl right in the back there. I think that I want the fiddleheads in next. And we need just a skosh more oil. And I'm using avocado oil today. It's a very healthy oil, very high in poly and monounsaturated fats, high smoke point, which means that you're not going to get nearly as much smoke when cooking at a higher temperature. Olive oil is the healthiest oil, however, it has a low smoke point. Many people don't know this. Many people cook with their olive oil. It also denatures some of their health benefits. So I prefer usually avocado oil. Sometimes I'll use canola oil if I'm not able to get the avocado oil. So these are going to cook for about another 5 minutes in the pan here. Okay. Now, for this pan, it's a 9-inch pan, 9 to 10-inch pan. I'm going to use 3 eggs. And these eggs, I'm going to crack them. Make sure we don't have any shells. Looks like we are happy eggs. We don't want to have any shells in our frittata. Those of you that may be just tuning in, this is Chef Ian Vair, coming to you from Peg TV here in Rutland, Vermont, and we are making a wild morel mushroom and fiddlehead frittata. Potatoes are cooked. Fiddleheads are cooking. Eggs are happy. I'm going to give that just a pinch of some kosher salt. You feel free to use iodized salt. I just, personally, I like the feel of the kosher salt. It gives me a good gauge on what, how I'm seasoning. So salt, a little black pepper, fresh basil if you have it. Today we have some dry basil. No big deal. Give that one more little turn. Lovely. Now remember, if I make any of this look easy, don't stress about it. I've been doing this for 25 years. And also remember, this is a nice recipe to sort of pull apart. You don't have to make a frittata with these fiddleheads or these wild mushrooms. You can use these to make a wonderful pasta dish. You could make an omelet with it if you like. You could stuff different ingredients, say like a stuffed chicken breast with it. You could use it in a soup. Have fun with these. I actually just decided to make this frittata yesterday. I was gifted some of these ingredients and just really, really happy about it. And I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. Okay, let's see here. Fabulous. So we steam these for 5 minutes. They've been cooking for 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm happy with the texture. Remember, we want to make sure that they're cooked through to ensure there's no toxicity in these. And there is a very mild amount of toxicity, so we have to cook these with wild foraged ingredients. That's usually the process, okay? It's always a good idea to cook your wild foraged foods. Definitely with mushrooms. Always wild mushrooms, you want to cook them. Okay, so I'm going to add this to the bowl over here with the potatoes. Just a skosh more avocado oil. We have our mushrooms ready to go, and boom, a little more heat. I'm going to cook them all on the same side first, outside first. And these also will take probably 3 or 4 minutes. Yum, yum. Don't be afraid to adjust your heat. Okay, let those go. Next, I'm going to prep my cheese, and I brought a sharp cheddar today, and I brought a wonderful mild gorgonzola cheese. So, the cheddar, I like to shred. I like how it disperses. Not too much. I only have about an ounce and a half maybe. Now I have my blue cheese. There's my cheddar. Here's my blue. And this I'm just going to chop up a little bit. Ah, I love blue cheese. This is wonderful. Okay, yum. Okay, so our cheeses are just about ready. Thank you for watching, everyone. A lot of fun here in the studio. It's fun being able to go to the farmer's market or go into the wild, into the woods, and find ingredients that are delicious right in our backyards, whether it's something that our community has brought in or we've gone to find ourselves. Seems like a trend that is more and more popular as time goes on. And of course, in the past, this was a trend that was known by many, many cultures and still is around the world. Okay, these look wonderful. Wild morel mushrooms. So this variety is actually, it's debatable. I've looked at the notes from a mycologist who will call these black or gray or yellow morels in different stages. There's also a wild yellow morel, that gets very, very large. I've even found them a foot tall. Most of these were 2 to 3 inches tall. All right, those are close. Now we have some onions I'm going to add into this, and I like to caramelize my onions just a little bit. It smells so good in here. Awesome. Makes me happy. Now, a book that I use to do my foraging is the National Audubon Society Field Guide to North American Mushrooms. They have many other field guides, but this is one of the best that you can use. It's very important, anyone who is unfamiliar with foraging, to find a mentor, take a workshop, start slow. You know, for my first 5 years of foraging, I wouldn't eat anything. I was terrified. But when I met a nice gentleman who knew a lot more than I did, and he taught me many things about foraging mushrooms and introduced me to my first mushrooms, which were wild chanterelle. It was amazing. I was so excited. You know, there was a time in my life that I hated mushrooms. I grew up hating mushrooms. Even through culinary school, I wouldn't eat them. And now, you know, around town, people call me the mushroom man. It's a lot of fun. So I'm going to add just a little bit more avocado oil to our morel mushrooms and our onions that are caramelizing. Very close. Okay, so now, this goes fast. We're almost there, everybody. Okay. The garlic is going to go in last. We don't want to burn the garlic. Burned garlic isn't very good. Garlic that you just barely sweat, it's delicious. Takes the bite out of it. Okay. Just one garlic clove is here. And I like to add a skosh more avocado oil so it doesn't burn, just a little bit. Almost. Give it a little turn. So the potatoes took the longest. The fiddleheads were second. Then we went with the mushrooms, the morel mushrooms. Onions went in, finished with our garlic. Now, at the very end, we're going to add in our fiddleheads and our potatoes, which we've already cooked. And remember, we cooked them separately because the potatoes take longer to cook than everything. The fiddleheads take longer to cook than the mushrooms. The onions are next. Then is the garlic. Give it a nice turn. Now, again, I like to add not too much, just a little bit more salt. And I prefer kosher, but there's lots of different salts out there that someone could use. A little basil. Awesome. Hope we can all see this. We have about, looks like about 12.5 fiddlehead ferns. We have about 12 morel mushrooms. They're quite rare, so that's, believe it or not, a lot of mushrooms. I have only maybe a half of an onion at the most, 1 clove of garlic. Probably in the end I used a tablespoon and a half of the avocado oil. And don't let that worry you. Some people think, hey, you know, I got to stay away from the fat. It's not good. But, you know, there are good fats and there are bad fats. We want to stay away from the bad fats. But the good fats like avocado oil or olive oil are excellent. Me personally, I make sure that I ingest olive oil every single day. I make sure that I cook with avocado oil always. It's very important. Okay, so one more hit of oil. Just a little bit. One more toss. We have our 3 eggs that we've already broken and mixed with some basil and just a little bit of salt and pepper. And I don't like to over salt or pepper, but I want to make sure that my food is flavorful. And some of you that don't like salt and pepper or these ingredients, change it up. No big deal. This is a nice recipe for breakfast or for brunch. We pour this right over top. I want to keep this in the pan for another minute. Make sure it's not stuck to the bottom. It'll lift just slightly, and then we're going to be going into the oven. All right. Let's see. Let's lay down our sharp cheddar cheese first. And this is a Vermont sharp cheddar. Yum. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and go into the oven. My oven's set at 375, and frittatas generally take me about 12 to 15 minutes. And if 375 is too high of a temp for you, drop it down to 350. I like 375 because it gives it just a little bit of brownage, a little caramelization on top. Really nice. So into the oven. We're almost there. About 3 minutes and we are finished. So, the wild mushroom frittata, fiddlehead ferns, morel mushrooms, caramelized onions, and garlic, using healthy oil, delicious cheeses, sharp cheddar, gorgonzola blue, locally sourced products, found in our backyard, in the wild, in the mountains of Vermont. Spending time at the farmer's market. Very important, everyone. This is a subject, wild foraging and finding our produce and many other ingredients and incredible products locally at our farmer's market. These are our friends. These are our family. This is our community. This trend is important for us. So many people these days are at home, isolated, depressed, unhealthy. We need to get out. We need to meet our community members. We need to have fun. It's one thing to watch this show and other shows at home and learn. It's quite another to make a process of it for yourself. Have fun with it. I have fun with it. I'm a fun guy, though. Well, you know, we're on camera. I got to tell a joke or two. You know, it's a little nerve-wracking being up here, but if you've ever watched any of my past shows, I've definitely been more nervous. They're much more fluid these days. So you're watching the Green Mountain Chef now. My name is Ian Vair. We're in the studios of PEG TV here in Rutland, Vermont. If you didn't know that we had things like this here in Rutland, keep tuning in. Come to the market. There's a lot of things that are disguised, that are hidden. We might need to look, but once we find them, we're going to be very happily surprised. So, let's take a peek. So I have a little television magic today. Little television magic, and I like to do this on the show. We want to make sure that our products are out of the oven in time. So this frittata went in just a few minutes ago, and like I said, it's going to take about 12 to 15 minutes on 375. Now, a little cheat, little television magic. I made one before the show and got it in there, and it's going to be finished when it comes out. So don't worry necessarily about how fast I did things on camera. Just think about the process and the ingredients and the fact that we can pull it apart and put it all back together. All right, let's take a look. Lovely. Okay. Wow. Wild fiddleheads. I have some sour cream, a little bit of homemade salsa, and here it is, the morel mushroom and wild fiddlehead frittata. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. I had a great time. I hope you did too. Please tune in again for another show of Green Mountain Chef here on PEG TV in Rutland, Vermont. Have a lovely day.